My dad said, "We're skipping your kid's birthday, money's tight." I believed him. Then I saw his live stream. Bounce house, clowns, piles of gifts for my sister's kids. My son asked quietly, "Mom, don't they need me?" I snapped a photo of their rent check and typed, "Return to sender." By 9 a.m. my dad knocked on my door for 20 minutes until My dad told me a week before my son's birthday that they wouldn't be coming. Said money was tight. I believed him because that's what you do when it's your dad. You believe him even when it feels off. And it did feel off. I told them we didn't need to do anything big. I'd already planned something low-key. A few friends at the park, cake, snacks, balloons from the dollar store. My son just wanted to see his grandparents. He's never been the kind of kid to ask for much. I said if money was the problem, they didn't even need to bring a gift. Just come. Drink coffee. Sit with us. Be part of the day. My mom replied with a thumbs up. My dad said we'll see in a separate text later that night. I assumed that meant no, but I still held on to a bit of hope. Then the morning of his birthday came. My son was eating cereal and talking about whether he should bring his scooter to the park. I opened Instagram out of habit and there it was. My sister's live stream. I tapped it. First thing I saw was a giant bounce house. Bright red and blue, bigger than anything I'd ever rented in my life. Kids were screaming, laughing. Then it panned over to my dad, carrying a tray of cupcakes with little custom toppers. Cartoon characters I recognized from my nephew's favorite show. My mom was decorating a table that had gifts stacked nearly as high as her shoulders. Clowns. A magician. Face painting. One of those photo booth setups with props. Looked like something out of a Pinterest board. I sat there frozen while my son looked over my shoulder and asked kind of softly if that was Grandma and Grandpa's house. I told him yeah. He went quiet. Then he said almost in a whisper, "Don't they need me?" I didn't know what to say. I locked my phone and set it face down. My hands were shaking a little. Not from anger, not yet. From something colder. Like when you realize the people you keep making excuses for aren't just careless. They're deliberate. He went to grab his shoes, still holding the card he made for my dad. Crayon drawings, 10 years old, and he still drew hearts on it. At the park my husband did his best. He kept the music going, grilled hot dogs, made everyone laugh. But I was somewhere else in my head. I kept thinking about all the birthdays we tried to include them in. All the times we'd driven across town just so they wouldn't have to. The thousands we'd quietly spent covering their rent, groceries, even my sister's car repairs. And all the while they made sure her kids got everything. Every single time. That evening I logged into our email. I pulled up the rent check we sent to their landlord every month, the $950 that had gone out like clockwork for over 3 years. I snapped a photo of the PDF. Then I typed out a subject line, "Return to sender." No explanation. No warning. Just that. By 9 a.m. the next morning I was in the shower when I heard it. Loud, fast, relentless knocking at the door. My husband said it had been going on for 20 minutes straight. He didn't open. When I stepped out, still in a towel, my phone was blowing up. 4 missed calls from my mom. 2 from my dad. A single message from my sister that just said, "What the hell did you do?" I sat on the bed and stared at my son's birthday card. The one he'd never get to hand over. The one I couldn't throw away. Then the sound of the front door handle turning. They had used their old key. The sound of the key turning hit something deep in my chest. For a moment I couldn't move. They still had it. From years ago, back when my son was a baby and my parents insisted on having full access in case of emergencies. I never asked for it back. I should have. That was my mistake. The door didn't open fully, just jolted against the chain lock. There was a pause, then a knock. Not a gentle one. My dad said my name like he expected me to come running. Said he didn't know what was going on, but we needed to clear the air. My husband stood by the door, arms crossed. Neither of us moved. Then came my mom's voice. Soft, fake concerned. She asked if my son was okay. If we were okay. Like the party with clowns and bounce houses hadn't been streamed publicly with them dancing and laughing just 12 hours before. Like they weren't grinning while my son sat on our couch wondering if he'd done something wrong. I walked back to the bedroom and got dressed fast. When I came out, my dad was still knocking. I opened the door without a word. My husband didn't try to stop me. He knew I needed to hear them say it or not say it. They both looked, not sorry, just uncomfortable. Like they'd shown up hoping I'd smooth it over for them. My mom was holding a pink pastry box. I caught the words "Party City" on a plastic bag hanging from her arm. My dad looked down at the floor. I asked him straight up, "Why lie?" He said it wasn't a lie exactly. Just poor timing. Said they thought we understood that money was tight, and that they didn't mean to hurt anyone. He even tried to say the party wasn't really a party, just a little celebration for the boys starting school. I stared at him. Told him they threw a full carnival. That my son watched it live. That he cried when they didn't show up. My mom jumped in, saying it wasn't about favorites, that I was being too sensitive, and that we could have come if we'd wanted to, as if we'd been invited. Then my dad said the thing that made my stomach turn. He brought up the will. Said if I was really going to make a scene over this, maybe I needed to think about consequences. That it was a shame how some people forget who supported them growing up. That we all make sacrifices. I told them we'd made ours quietly for years. Paid their rent. Paid for my sister's car repairs. Groceries. Emergency dental work. Birthday gifts for her twins when they couldn't afford them. We never asked for anything. Not a thank you, not a favor. They never offered. I told them to leave. My dad hesitated. Said we were family and family works things out. My husband walked up behind me and asked them again to leave, this time firmly. My mom mumbled something like, "This is ridiculous," and turned to go. Before they stepped off the porch, I told them one last thing. The rent was done. Permanently. They'd have to figure it out just like we always did. They didn't respond. That day went by slow. My son didn't ask about them. He just played with his toys and asked if we could go to the arcade next weekend instead. I said yes. I told him next year we'd do something even better. He nodded. Said he didn't really like clowns anyway. Later that evening, after the dishes were done and my husband was putting laundry in the dryer, I checked my phone. 23 notifications. My sister had posted a screenshot of my email. The one with the rent check photo and the subject line, "Return to sender." Her caption was long and smug. He said I was bitter. That I was jealous her kids were happy and mine was raised in silence. Said I ruined a beautiful day with drama and tried to punish our parents for something petty. Then came the comments. Friends of hers. Mutuals. A couple distant relatives. Wow, some people just need attention. Isn't she the one who never shows up to anything anyway? So sad when siblings become enemies. I wasn't surprised. Not really. What got me was the message from my aunt buried under the pile. Just one line. "You did the right thing, Nicole. It's about time." But it was too late. I was already the villain. By Monday morning my phone was a war zone. Missed calls, voicemails, texts from numbers I hadn't saved in years. My cousin from Florida, who I hadn't spoken to since my wedding, messaged to say I was being childish. My mom's sister sent me a paragraph that started with, "This isn't how your mother raised you." My uncle's wife threw in something about how disrespecting elders was never the answer. I didn't reply to any of it. I just muted the group chats and turned my phone over. My husband offered to block them all, but I told him no. Let them talk. Let them get it out of their system. What they didn't know was that I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. That week I started closing tabs in my life. One by one. First I emailed the landlord we'd been paying for my parents. Told him any future rent issues were no longer our concern. I CC'd my dad on it. No reply. Then I removed the shared grocery account we'd been refilling for my sister. Deleted the auto payment from our bank. Cancelled the Amazon Prime they all used. Changed the password. Changed the Netflix. Changed everything. By Wednesday I got another text from my mom. No apology. Just, "Your sister is devastated. Her boys are confused. You really hurt this family." I read it while packing my son's lunch. He wanted pretzels that day. I gave him 2 bags. That afternoon he came home with a drawing in his backpack. It was our little family, just me, my husband, and him, eating cake under a tree. He wrote, "The best birthday" in the corner. I asked if he wanted to hang it up. He said no, it was just for me. Thursday night my sister went nuclear. She posted a long Facebook status saying she no longer had a sister. Said she was done trying to include people who didn't want to be happy for her family. Said people who hold money over others don't deserve to be in their lives. That post got nearly 100 likes. Heart reactions. Some people added comments like, "Proud of you for setting boundaries." The irony wasn't lost on me. But it stung more than I expected. Because for a few seconds I actually believed she meant it. That I really didn't have a sister anymore. I cried in the bathroom. Quietly. Just sat there on the closed toilet lid and let it happen. 10 minutes, maybe 15. My husband never knocked, never called out. He just waited in the hallway like he always does. When I came out he held up a takeout menu and said, "Pizza or Chinese?" Like nothing had happened. I pointed to the Chinese place. He smiled. Later that night I opened a drawer I hadn't looked in for years. It had old letters, birthday cards, receipts I kept for no reason. I found the envelope from when we gave my sister $5,000 for her moving costs. Back when she swore she'd pay us back within the year. That was 7 years ago. I opened another file. A spreadsheet my husband had kept of everything we'd covered over the years. It totaled over $15,000. Rent, bills, birthdays, last-minute emergencies. No repayments. No thank yous. Just expectations. I stared at that number for a long time. Then I closed the laptop. And I said out loud to no one, "That's it." But I knew it wasn't. Because karma doesn't knock once. Circles. Friday morning felt hollow. The kind of quiet that settles when a storm is already on the way but no one wants to admit it. My husband had left early for a meeting. My son was in the living room, half wrapped in a blanket, building a Lego police station with soft humming in the background. I was on my second cup of coffee when the email came in. Subject: urgent notice, past due rent. I clicked, expecting spam. It wasn't. It was from my parents' landlord. Directly to me. He said there were now 2 months of unpaid rent. That he'd waited because of our previous payment history, but needed to know if we were still supporting the lease. Otherwise, he'd have to move forward with a notice to vacate. I stared at the message for a while. Then I archived it. Not more than an hour later, the calls started again. First from my dad. Then my mom. Then 2 more back-to-back from numbers I didn't recognize. I didn't answer. I didn't listen to the voicemails either. Not until the name Marcus popped up. My sister's boyfriend. He left a voicemail saying he just wanted to help mediate. Like it was some kind of business dispute. Said it was all just a big misunderstanding and maybe I didn't realize how hard things had been lately for them. I remembered that Christmas when he messaged me asking for $600 to surprise the twins. Said he'd Venmo me back the next week. That was 3 years ago. I blocked him. Then came a call with no caller ID. I answered out of reflex. It was my mom. She didn't start angry. She went with guilt first. Said the boys had been crying. That my sister wasn't eating. That this had gone far enough. Then when I said nothing, her voice changed. She said she was willing to transfer me $1,000. Right then, if I could just cover this month's rent. Said my dad was trying to sell a few things, and they'd have it all figured out soon. I asked her what things. She hesitated. Then casually said, well, we already moved a lot into storage. A few heirlooms. Some furniture. The china set. It's not a big deal, we just need time. That's when something clicked in my head. They were already preparing to leave. Not just move, to lose everything. And they hadn't said a word. Not until the money stopped. Then came the line that gutted me. You owe us, Nicole. For everything we gave you growing up. That was it. I hung up. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't yell. Just ended it. When my husband got home, I told him everything. He didn't flinch. He listened, then quietly walked to the hall closet and pulled out a worn folder. The kind we used when we were newly married and trying to keep every receipt, every document, every plan in order. He flipped to the last page and showed me a number circled in red. Our current savings. He said, it's enough. Go. Let's buy a house. New district. New neighbors. New everything. Let them burn their bridges. We're not standing on the other side anymore. I didn't even answer. I just nodded. That was the first moment I felt air return to my lungs in weeks. That night, while my husband searched Zillow listings and my son drew spaceships on the back of a takeout menu, my phone buzzed again. It was from my sister. No long rant. No hashtags. No blame this time. Just 2 photos. The first was a receipt for a storage unit. 3 months prepaid with my parents' name on it. Address on the other side of town. The second was a photo of a crumpled, handwritten letter. The kind of yellow paper my dad used to keep in a drawer for jotting down important notes. It was addressed to me. In his handwriting. The photo cut off most of the bottom, but I could make out the first few lines. Nicole, if this is goodbye, then there's something you never knew. Your sister's first birthday. We couldn't afford gifts for both of you. We chose her. And we kept choosing. That's where the photo ended. No second page. No explanation. No closure. She didn't send the rest. And I didn't ask for it. I didn't open the second photo right away. I watched it sit there unopened like a package I wasn't sure I wanted to touch. My sister hadn't sent any words, no explanation. Just the image. And part of me wondered if she even read it before she hit send, or if she sent it just to twist the knife a little deeper. Eventually, curiosity won. I tapped it. The lighting was terrible, but the writing was clear enough. Same yellow paper. Same pen. Same slanted, slightly uneven letters I'd seen on birthday cards growing up. My dad never used punctuation the way he was supposed to. He wrote how he talked, fast, incomplete, and usually without the things that mattered most. But not this time. It said, we chose her. We kept choosing her. Not because she needed it more, but because you didn't ask for anything. We didn't think you'd notice. You were quiet. You were easy. You never complained. It made it easier to keep giving to the one who made noise. That doesn't mean we were right. It just means we were lazy. And selfish. I stopped reading and set the phone down for a second. It felt like the wind had been knocked out of me. I'd spent years believing they didn't know. That maybe they were just unaware. That they didn't see how much they gave her while I stayed on the sidelines. But they did know. They noticed. They just decided not to care enough to fix it. I picked the phone back up and kept reading. I don't know how to undo what we did. I don't expect you to forgive us. But I want you to know that you were the one we should have invested in. You grew up and became the strongest person in this family. I saw it. I just never said it. Not once. And I'm sorry. For that. For everything. I always thought there would be time. That was the end. No signature. No goodbye. Just those words. I stared at it for a long time. Then I set it aside and walked into the kitchen. My husband was there making popcorn for movie night. He looked over and asked if I was okay. I didn't answer right away. I just walked over, wrapped my arms around his waist and stayed there. Eventually I said, "We're never going back, are we?" He said, "No, we're not." The next morning I forwarded the moving truck confirmation to their landlord. I told him they had until the end of the week. I didn't offer to help them pack. I didn't ask where they were going. I didn't want to know. That same afternoon my mom texted. Just a short message. "Saw the truck. Thank you. I hope one day you understand." I read it twice then deleted it. There was nothing left to understand. They understood what they were doing when they did it. Every skipped birthday. Every missed call. Every Christmas where my son got a sweater and my sister's twins unwrapped entire Lego cities. It was never about forgetting. It was about choosing. And I was done being the one who didn't make noise. By Wednesday they were gone. Moved out. No forwarding address. My sister posted a vague story about starting over and clean slates. I didn't watch the whole thing. Instead, I watched my son in the backyard of the house we were about to buy. It had a lemon tree, a little patch of dirt he could turn into a garden, and a creaky swing set that he'd already claimed as his. He came running up to me and said, "Can we plant carrots?" I said, "Of course." Then he asked if we were still going camping for his next birthday. I told him we were. Just us. He nodded like that was exactly what he wanted. That night I tucked him into bed and stared at the bookshelf we'd built together. The one filled with stories he never gets tired of. Stories where the underdog wins. Where the forgotten ones rise. Where the quiet kids become the heroes. For the first time I realized that's who I'd become. Not the angry daughter. Not the bitter sister. But the woman who chose peace and meant it. The week after they moved out it was like the air changed. Not just in our apartment but in my body. I felt lighter. My chest didn't tighten when my phone buzzed. I didn't wake up dreading some emotional ambush from a blocked number or a guilt-drenched voicemail. Silence used to scare me. Now it felt like freedom. We put in an offer on the house with the lemon tree. It was accepted that Friday. When we told our son, he hugged me and said, "Can we bring the Legos?" I told him we'd bring everything. That nothing was being left behind. And I meant it. I thought that would be the end of the story. But karma's funny. It waits. It doesn't always come fast. It doesn't always look like you think it will. But when it arrives, it makes sure you recognize it. 2 weeks after the move, I got a message on Facebook from someone I didn't know. A woman named Trish. Said she was the manager of a daycare center in a different state. Said she was trying to reach someone in the family because my sister had listed me as her emergency contact. I stared at the message for a long time before answering. Turns out my sister had moved 3 states away. Mark, her boyfriend, had left a week after the move. She was now working part-time at a grocery store and had enrolled the boys at a daycare she couldn't afford. When her payment bounced, they tried calling her but she never answered. When they went through her emergency contacts, mine was the only number that hadn't been disconnected. I told Trish politely that I was no longer in contact with my sister. That I couldn't be of help. He understood. But 2 days later the boys showed up at our front door. No warning. No call. Just a knock in the early evening. My husband opened it thinking it was a neighbor. Instead he found my parents. And my sister. And her kids. They looked exhausted. My sister's face was streaked with mascara. My mom clutched a bag that looked like it had been packed in a rush. My dad didn't say anything. I didn't let them in. She said she didn't know where else to go. That she'd made a mistake. That she was sorry. But I didn't hear the words I needed. I didn't hear I was wrong. I didn't hear, "You didn't deserve this." She just said, "You don't understand what it's like." I told her she was right. I didn't. Because I'd never been given the chance to fall apart. I was always the one expected to hold it all together. My mom tried to push past the door. My husband stepped in. Told them to leave. My dad didn't say a word the entire time. Just stood behind them looking at the floor. He couldn't even meet my eyes. My sister begged. Said they were out of options. That the boys didn't do anything wrong. That they missed me. That they loved their cousin. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just said, I forgave the debt. But not the damage. Then I shut the door. They didn't knock again. They left. I don't know where they went. I haven't heard from them since. And here's the part no one prepares you for. The sadness doesn't leave all at once. It lingers. It visits when the house is quiet. When birthdays come. When your son says something kind and you wonder who he learned that from, because it definitely wasn't from the people who raised you. But eventually even that fades. We moved into our new house a month later. The lemon tree bloomed. My son planted carrots in the backyard. My husband started painting again. I found myself writing late at night, not stories about pain but about peace. About people who choose themselves and don't apologize for it. Sometimes I think about them. About my parents. My sister. I wonder if they still blame me. If they even remember what they did. But it doesn't matter anymore. Because I learned the hardest truth of all. Some people won't love you the way you need. Even if they raised you. Even if they say they do. And you have to let them go anyway. So I did. It's been almost a year since I shut that door. People assume when you cut off family there's some big dramatic scene. Shouting final words, slamming doors. But the truth is the real ending is quiet. It's in the small things that don't happen anymore. No more waiting for texts that never come. No more bending over backwards to keep a fake peace. No more pretending. We've been in the new house 8 months now. It still smells like fresh paint. My son has his own room, decorated exactly the way he wanted. Glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, a bookshelf full of space stuff, and a poster of a robot riding a dinosaur. He's never asked about them. Not once. I don't know if that's because he forgot or because he remembers everything too well. The carrots sprouted in June. We made a whole event out of pulling them. He washed them in the sink like they were gold nuggets. He said, "It's weird that you can grow something from nothing." I smiled but didn't answer. I was thinking the same thing about myself. In August I got an email from a debt collector. Not for me but for my sister. Apparently she used my name once as a backup reference. Years ago. They were trying to reach out. I responded politely, stating we were no longer in contact. The collector thanked me. That was it. Nothing explosive. Just a thread snipped. Sometimes I wonder if they think I'm cruel. I wonder if they sit in some rented apartment and tell stories about how ungrateful I turned out. Maybe they tell their version of it. The one where I snapped over nothing and walked away from the people who loved me anyway. Let them. Because I've learned that love isn't something you prove by staying. It's something you honor by knowing when to leave. A few weeks ago my husband and I sat on the back steps, sipping coffee while the sun came up. He said something simple. Something that stuck. "You don't owe anyone your peace, Nicole." And that's what it was. That's what I'd spent my whole life giving away. My peace. To people who never noticed when it was gone. Now I notice everything. My son's laugh in the morning. The quiet hum of our house at night. The way my husband squeezes my hand when we pass each other in the kitchen. The small, quiet life we built. One without apologies, without begging, without debt will never be paid back. There's no punchline to this story. No twist. Just this truth. Sometimes you grow up thinking you're hard to love because no one ever loved you the way you needed. But the truth is you were never the problem. They just weren't capable. And that's not your burden to carry anymore. On my son's birthday I whispered, "Where's his cake?" Dad said, "We don't waste money on kids who aren't special." My brother laughed, "He doesn't deserve one anyway." I packed up and left. 48 hours later my brother begged, "I need $20,000 for rent." I smiled and announced the real news. I used to think my family had issues, but I never thought they'd sink this low. Especially not on my son's birthday. My son turned 6 this year. A sweet, sensitive kid who still draws robots with 3 arms and thinks dinosaurs can come back if we just believe hard enough. I told him this birthday would be special. I promised him cake, games, family, and a surprise gift he'd been eyeing for months. I had the whole thing planned down to the color of balloons. But then my parents called. Said they wanted to do it. Said they already had everything in motion. Decorations, food, a magician even. I hesitated, but I'd been raised to believe that letting people help was part of keeping peace. My parents rarely offered anything voluntarily, so when they insisted I let go of control and said yes. What I didn't know was that their idea of help came with an expiration date and a grudge. See, 2 weeks before all this, my brother Jake came to me asking for $15,000. Said his business was drowning. I'd heard that before. Every few months it was something. First it was crypto, then a lawn care startup, then custom sneaker reselling. Every time he needed just a little boost to get things off the ground. Every time I helped, it vanished. This time I said no. Calmly. Politely. I told him I couldn't be his safety net anymore, and that I had to focus on my son. He didn't respond well. Called me selfish. Said I owed him. That if he hadn't vouched for me with Dad back in the day, I'd be nothing. That was the last I heard from him, until the birthday. When we arrived at my parents' house, my son clutched the handmade card he'd drawn for Grandpa. He was wearing the shirt he picked out himself. A blue one with stars and spaceships. He was bouncing on his toes, excited. The house was silent. No balloons. No music. No tablecloth. Nothing that even slightly resembled a child's birthday. Just my dad at the table with a beer, my mom on her tablet, and Jake leaning against the wall with a smirk like he'd just won a bet. No other kids. No neighbors. Just family, if that word still meant anything. My son looked up at me confused. He whispered, "Where's everyone?" I crouched down and quietly asked my dad where the cake was. He didn't even look up. Just said, "We don't waste money on kids who aren't special." Thought he was joking. I waited for the punchline. There wasn't one. Jake let out a short laugh and added, "He doesn't deserve one anyway." I couldn't speak. My son stood there holding that card like it meant something. He walked up and handed it to my dad, who took it without even looking and set it beside his glass. They handed my son a gift wrapped in crumpled newspaper. Inside was a broken toy car missing a wheel. And a half-used coloring book. Literally. 2 pages already filled out. Some of the crayons were worn down to nubs. My son still said thank you. That was it for me. I gathered our things without saying a word. No scene. No drama. Just a quiet exit. My parents barely looked up. Jake muttered something about me always being overly sensitive. His wife gave me a pitying glance and went back to her phone. We left. The sun was still out when we got in the car. My son asked if we could get a cupcake on the way home. I told him we'd have a real party, just the two of us. That night, while he slept with frosting on his cheek and the new toy I bought him hugged against his chest, I opened my laptop and got to work. Because I'd seen enough. I was done hoping they'd change. I was done trying to mix family and forgiveness with money and business. 48 hours later, Jake called. Said he needed $20,000. Not for business this time, for rent. Said he was behind 3 months, that his landlord was threatening eviction. He didn't even ask how the birthday went. I said hold on and walked into my office. I pulled out the legal documents I'd been finalizing quietly, preparing for this moment. They thought I was just their bank account with feelings. But I'd been planning something for months. They had no idea what was about to happen next. When Jake called asking for $20,000, he sounded like someone used to getting what he wanted. No shame. No apology. Just pressure. Like I owed it to him. Like ruining my son's birthday hadn't even registered. I didn't answer right away. I just let the silence sit. He said he was about to lose his apartment. That his credit was shot, his wife was threatening to leave, and their daughter didn't even have a bed anymore because they sold it last week for grocery money. He kept talking, throwing details at me like darts, hoping one would land. I asked him, what about that lawn care business? He said it folded. I asked, what about the truck Dad co-signed for? He said it got repossessed. I asked, what about Mom and Dad? He said they couldn't help anymore. Said Dad's pension was tied up and Mom didn't want to get involved. That last part was interesting. I told him I'd call him back. I went straight to my safe and pulled out everything. The papers, the contracts, the accounts, all of it. See, for the past 4 years, my parents and Jake had been silent partners in my consulting firm. Not active, not helpful, just leeching off a company they never lifted a finger to build. I gave them shares out of guilt. Out of a warped sense of obligation. They always made it sound like they were protecting me by being involved. Really, they were siphoning money. And it hadn't stopped at the business. They used my credit, my name, my goodwill. Quietly, constantly. For years. But I'd been preparing for this. The moment they crossed a line I couldn't unsee. My lawyer and I had been working behind the scenes to sever every legal tie. It hadn't been easy, but I had a clear goal. I just didn't expect to be pushed over the edge on my son's birthday. That night I went public. I called an emergency shareholder meeting. My lawyer presented the findings: financial negligence, misuse of company resources, repeated personal withdrawals without consent, and failure to fulfill any operational role. The vote was unanimous. The shares I had given them were revoked. Their access was terminated. The company was mine again. Fully. Legally. Next, I froze the joint family account they'd been draining for years. I closed the tab at the private club where my dad had been racking up thousands. And I sent an email to every major client letting them know I was restructuring, cutting out the noise, the dead weight, the distraction. Jake called the next morning, screaming. I let it go to voicemail. An hour later my dad texted one word. Really? And then my mom called over and over. I picked up on the 5th try. She didn't ask about her grandson. She didn't ask why. She just asked how I could humiliate the family like this. That's when I told her. The truth without sugar. I told her my son deserved better. That I was tired of watching them treat him like a second-class citizen just because he came from me, a woman who didn't beg them for help every 3 months. That I was tired of being the one who built everything only for them to act like they owned it. She went quiet. I hung up. That afternoon, I booked a weekend trip for me and my son. Just the 2 of us. No guilt. No games. I watched him play in the hotel pool, laughing and splashing, no idea the world had shifted. And I realized something. This was the first time I felt peace in years. But it wasn't over yet. Jake hadn't given up. Jake didn't call again after that last voicemail. Not a single text. Not even one of his passive-aggressive guilt messages. Just silence. For about 2 days. Then he showed up at my house. It was Thursday early evening. My son had just finished dinner and was sitting cross-legged on the living room rug, building what he swore was a spaceship but looked more like a mutant turtle. I was in the kitchen putting leftovers away when the doorbell rang. 3 times, fast and sharp. Not like a neighbor. Like someone trying to send a message. I already knew. I opened the door and there he was, standing with his hands shoved into the pockets of a stained hoodie, eyes bloodshot, jaw clenched so tight I thought he might crack a tooth. For half a second I thought maybe, just maybe, he came to say something real. An apology. A moment of accountability. He pushed past me without a word. Walked straight into the house like he still had a place there. Like he belonged. My son looked up from the Legos and smiled, always too kind for his own good. He said, "Hi, Uncle Jake." Jake didn't say a word back. Didn't even look at him. Just stood in the middle of my living room like he was waiting for a crowd to form and take his side. I told him we weren't doing this here. Not in front of my kid. Not now. He said we were unless I wanted him to start yelling. Said I'd already ruined his life, and if I thought he was going to walk away quietly I was wrong. He said he had nothing. That he couldn't make rent, couldn't get credit, couldn't get a job without someone looking at his name and pausing. He said I did that to him. I reminded him I had spent years cleaning up after him. I reminded him that this entire disaster started when I politely said no to yet another bailout. That it wasn't me who buried him. It was his own choices, the constant lies, the way he treated people like resources instead of family. He said I had a responsibility to fix it. I asked him if he remembered what my son looked like 2 days ago, standing in their living room, holding that hand-drawn card while everyone ignored him. I asked him if he realized what that would have done to a 6-year-old's heart if he even cared. He didn't answer that. Instead he told me I'd regret cutting them off. That someday I'd need help and no one would come. That I wasn't as untouchable as I thought. Then he turned and left, slamming the door so hard a picture frame fell off the wall. I didn't go after him. That night after my son went to bed I logged into the business email I rarely used anymore. The one reserved for old clients and direct referrals. There were 3 emails flagged urgent. One of them was from a former client. Someone I hadn't spoken to in over a year. She said Jake had contacted her directly. Offered her a better rate if she signed a contract with his consulting group. She forwarded the proposal. It was copy-pasted from one of my own, even used my exact wording and brand colors. But the letterhead, it was fake. Sloppy. His name on top, mine removed, and a fake business address that traced back to a UPS mailbox. I forwarded everything to my lawyer. We'd been sitting on documentation for months. Fraud, unauthorized access, and a string of shady invoice attempts Jake had slipped in during his last few weeks before I locked them out of the company systems. This wasn't new. But this was different. Now he was using my name. My clients. My reputation. I wanted to press charges. But my lawyer asked if I wanted to give him a chance to back off first. I said yes, but only once. So I drafted one email. No emotion. No drama. Subject: final notice. It was a single-page list of every infraction we'd documented, every client he'd contacted, every login he wasn't supposed to have. I made it clear that any further contact, professional or personal, would trigger formal legal action. I ended the email with one sentence. If you ever contact me or my son again, I will not hesitate. I didn't expect a reply. I didn't get one. But early the next morning I got a call from my dad. Not angry. Not blaming. This time he sounded different. Panicked. He said something had just happened. Something big. And they needed me. Only this time I wasn't sure I cared. My dad never panics. Even when my mom was rushed to the ER last December, he spoke in that same flat, emotionless tone, like he was reading off a weather report. So when he called me early that morning and I heard his voice shaking, I stopped what I was doing. He asked if I'd done something to the accounts. I played dumb. What accounts? He said everything was frozen. Their personal checking, the trust fund, even the backup account tied to the rental property Jake managed. He said the bank called him at 6 a.m. and told him all activity had been halted pending investigation. He asked again if I had anything to do with it. Here's the thing. I didn't. Not directly. I'd already removed myself from every joint asset. I made sure I had no more access, no more liability. I didn't want even a sliver of connection left after the stunt they pulled at my son's birthday. But I had been watching. Quietly. A few weeks earlier, my lawyer introduced me to a forensic accountant after I noticed some weird discrepancies in past filings. Just a hunch. Nothing concrete. But something felt off. And she found it. Buried in years of family tax paperwork and business documents my dad insisted on handling, to keep things simple. They had created a secondary account years ago. It was under a family LLC, tied loosely to my consulting firm, and quietly funneling revenue through it without my knowledge. I never even saw the transfers. They used an old licensing agreement I'd signed in my 20s and stretched it into something it was never meant to be. And Jake? He tried to empty it. According to my dad, the final red flag came when Jake attempted to wire $25,000 to an offshore crypto wallet. It got flagged instantly. Because Jake didn't have full access. Only limited authority tied to his name as a secondary signer. The bank froze everything. Now my parents couldn't even buy groceries without triggering fraud alerts. I asked my dad why he was telling me this now. He said because I needed to fix it. That maybe I still had connections at the bank. That I was smart, resourceful. That I knew how to talk to these people. He said Jake made a mistake, yes, but he's still family. And this mess was hurting everyone. That's when I told him I already knew about the account. That I had discovered it weeks ago. That my accountant had turned it over to the IRS. Every detail. Every document. And that if there was a fraud investigation now, it had nothing to do with me, and everything to do with them. He went silent. I told him this is what happens when you gamble with someone else's life. That I had built something from nothing and they tried to turn it into a piggy bank for failed businesses, vacations, and backyard renovations I never agreed to fund. He hung up without saying another word. I thought that was the end of it. I figured they'd retreat, regroup, maybe come back with a lawyer. But less than an hour later I got a text from Jake. Just one line. You really think you won? I didn't answer. Because it wasn't about winning. It never was. It was about ending something that should have ended a long time ago. I was about to shut my laptop when another message came through. This time from someone unexpected. Jake's wife. I hadn't heard from her in months. She'd always stayed out of the drama, pretended not to see the chaos as long as the bills got paid. Her message was longer. She asked if we could talk. Said she found something. And that I needed to see it. When Jake's wife texted saying she found something, I didn't respond right away. I stared at the message, half thinking it was some new tactic. Maybe she was trying to mediate, maybe bait me into dropping the legal side of things. But then she sent a photo. It was a folder. Thick. Stuffed. Yellowed edges and worn corners. Inside were receipts, contracts, and handwritten notes. The top sheet had my business name on it. Misspelled but recognizable. Below that, a document with my forged signature. I called her. She answered fast like she'd been waiting. She said she found it cleaning out the hall closet. Jake had left in a rush, took only one backpack, didn't even say goodbye to their daughter. She started digging through his things hoping for clues, where he went, who he contacted. Instead, she found that folder shoved behind old tax documents and expired insurance forms. She asked if I had a minute to come over. I did. I left my son with a neighbor and drove to their place. Quiet little rental on a street where all the houses looked the same. Her eyes were tired when she opened the door. She didn't say much, just handed me the folder and told me to sit. Inside were years' worth of paper. Jake hadn't just been siphoning money. He had been planning to replace me. There were printed email drafts where he tried to pitch himself as the co-founder of my firm, a fake logo design with his name under mine, even a full investor pitch deck using slides from a presentation I'd given at a conference 2 years ago. I remembered that talk. I wore heels that pinched so bad I could barely walk afterward. Jake wasn't even there. There were drafts of contracts he'd never sent, outlines of deals he tried to negotiate behind my back. The worst part, a blank employment contract using my son's name, a bizarre half-finished attempt to make it look like he was paying family for media consulting. My son was 6. I asked her why she was showing me this now. She said she didn't know what Jake had told me, but she was done covering for him. Done being scared of him. She had a daughter to think about. Then she pulled out a second folder. This one had bank statements, personal ones, from an account I'd never seen before. Jake had opened a savings account in my son's name. Illegally. Without my consent. It had been open for 2 years. He used it to funnel money in and out, probably assuming no one would look too closely at an account under a child's name. At one point it had over $40,000 in it. Now it had $12 and change. I took everything, photographed it, logged it, then I called my lawyer. We filed for a formal criminal investigation that night. Forgery, fraud, identity theft, and unauthorized use of a minor's information. The bank was notified. The IRS had already opened a case. Now the authorities would too. The next morning Jake called again. This time from a new number. Probably a burner phone. I let it go to voicemail. His message: "I'm sorry. I messed up. Please don't do this." I deleted it. That afternoon I took my son out for ice cream. He laughed the whole way there, no idea that the world around us had finally, completely changed. We were free. Almost. Because there was one last move I had to make. I gave it 24 hours. Long enough for Jake to realize this wasn't going to blow over. Long enough for my parents to try and talk themselves out of accountability. And long enough for me to feel the difference in my own chest. Like someone had cut a weight off me I didn't even know I was dragging. Then I made the final call. It wasn't just about business anymore. That part was done. The shares were revoked, the accounts were sealed, and my company was finally clean. This was personal. It was about cutting the last rotting threads they kept tugging on. Threads I didn't even realize were still attached. I met with my lawyer first thing that morning. We finalized everything. I had my name removed from the family trust. I revoked all financial powers of attorney my parents once held. I submitted documentation severing every joint ownership, every stake they once had in any of my property, vehicles, or financial assets. I filed a cease and desist against Jake. Formal. On record. But that wasn't the big one. The big one was the emergency custody plan. See, up until now, in case of something happening to me, custody of my son would have gone to the next of kin. My parents. Jake would have been next in line. I couldn't believe I let that go unchecked for so long. So I changed it. Every document. Every clause. His new guardian in the worst-case scenario would be my best friend. The one person who had never used me, manipulated me, or made me feel small. She cried when I told her. Said she was honored. I also had her added to my business succession plan. If anything happened to me, she'd take over the firm temporarily until a trusted board could step in. My son's inheritance was separated, secured, and legally protected from any claim by my family. And then I filed something else, something people rarely think to do. I filed a petition to disassociate from my parents as legal dependents. A rare process but necessary, because they'd already tried to open credit under my name once before. They'd taken out a small insurance policy in case something happened to me, one I never signed off on. That stopped now. All of it. By noon it was done. Then I changed the name of my company. Dropped the family name from the brand. Rebranded the logo, the mission statement, the client-facing materials. I had a designer on standby. She'd already mocked up 3 versions. I picked the one with a quiet strength in the typeface. Simple, clean, but firm. New chapter. New name. New rules. I took the rest of the day off. My son and I went out for lunch, his choice. He picked pancakes. We sat in a booth next to the window, syrup everywhere, and he smiled the whole time. At one point he looked at me and asked, "Do I get 2 birthdays next year?" I laughed. Maybe 3. We spent that weekend driving up to a lake cabin I used to visit as a kid. Back before the family dynamics twisted everything. I hadn't been back in over a decade. It was just the 2 of us. He skipped rocks. I made hot cocoa. He fell asleep in front of the fireplace wrapped in a blanket, toy spaceship under one arm. I sat on the porch that night, staring out over the water, and thought about everything that had happened. How they ruined his birthday just to punish me. How they used me for years, quietly draining and guilt-tripping. How they tried to drag my son into their chaos and failed. And how finally I'd put a stop to it. Not with shouting. Not with threats. Not even with revenge. With silence. With legal paperwork. With a door that would never be opened again. On Monday I got a message from my mom. It was one line. "We still love you." I didn't respond. Love without respect isn't love. Love that withholds kindness from a 6-year-old isn't love. Love that's only useful when there's something to gain isn't love. That door stayed closed. And for the first time in my life I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. A week after cutting all ties I found a letter in my mailbox. No return address, just my name scribbled in familiar handwriting. My mother's. It wasn't long. 2 pages. But enough to ruin a quiet morning. She wrote that they'd spoken to a lawyer. that they were considering filing for grandparent visitation rights. Said they had a bond with my son and it was unfair for me to take that away. I laughed. The same people who ignored him on his birthday, who watched him thank them for trash gifts with tears in his eyes, who let Jake mock a 6-year-old because they were angry at me. Now they wanted legal access to his life. I handed the letter to my lawyer. She wasn't even surprised. They had no case. No history of caregiving, no pattern of visits, not even a dozen photos together. But we didn't wait. My lawyer filed a motion to block any future attempts. If they tried, they'd be met with court evidence. Receipts, emails, forged documents, bank transfers, all of it. Still, the fact they were trying it all, it hit me harder than I expected. And then came the real surprise. Jake was arrested. It wasn't my doing. Turns out the crypto platform he used to move the stolen money had flagged him months ago. The documents I submitted connected the dots. They picked him up at a gas station outside town, living in his car. The charges were serious. Identity theft, fraud, wire crime. His wife messaged me again, just to say thank you. Said her daughter had started sleeping through the night again. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I took my son out for pancakes that weekend. He smiled the whole time talking about planets and dinosaurs. And I realized we were free. No more threats. No more manipulation. No more apologies I never asked for. Just peace. Real quiet earned peace. And a future with no shadows.